What's going on, everyone? I'm Jaren, and I had a really big week at the movies last week, so I have a lot of reviews coming your way as soon as I can get all of this done, especially around my busy work schedule. But let's kick this off with Spider Man Across the Spider Verse. This sequel was directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, who have been involved in animated projects such as Avatar The Last Airbender, Soul, and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Once again, we follow the story of Miles Morales as he catapults his way through the multiverse, encountering a team of spider people who are charged with protecting its very existence. When the heroes clash on how to handle a new threat, Miles must redefine on what it means to be a hero. 10 theatrical Spider Man movies spread across a little over 2 decades, and I'm surprised that we're still being blessed with another perfect entry to the web slinger's latest adventure. Start getting your ballots for 2024's Oscar season ready, guys, because the writers and the animators definitely deserve to be recognized for their work here. Looking back on 2018, I was very uninterested in checking out Into the Spider Verse, and I think it was just because people were just getting used to Tom Holland being their new Spider Man. I was still bitter about the whole Andrew Garfield situation, but we got Captain America Civil War, and Tom Holland comes in, filling in the shoes of Peter Parker, and I was like, okay. Spider Man Homecoming was a little bit different for me because, I feel like it really leveraged off Iron Man being in it. And, I just thought it was counterproductive when I heard the news that Sony wanted to do a spin off, an animated one at that, especially with the Miles Morales story. And with its positive reception, I finally checked it out and I loved it. I loved it to the point where I actually saw this movie in particular a lot more than the Tom Holland movies that Homecoming and Far From Home. 5 years later, I was so excited to check out the sequel finally because it was delayed for half a year. And I gotta say, Across the Spider Verse, I never thought that I would hold it at the highest praise or even the same level of perfection as the first one. First off, I love how they approach the opening by giving Gwen Stacy a much more prominent role. We get to revisit her backstory with facts that we haven't had the chance to flesh out since the first one, and we get the first 25 minutes in her shoes, which makes the emotions much more richer and a little more mature. Everything that happens kind of transpires to reuniting with Miles once again. And what I thought was incredible and interesting was how the prologue and epilogue are both narrated by Gwen Stacy, which I thought was kind of a refreshing take. Oscar Isaac, he is no stranger to the Marvel projects. He's played a villain, Apocalypse, in the X-Men universe. He's played our anti-hero, Moon Knight, who we are still waiting to get ushered into the big screen storyline with the Avengers. And now he's lending his voice to none other than Spider-Man 2099, aka Miguel O'Hara. Ugh, I just heard my voice on that one. I hope I did not butcher that name. But I apologize if I did. He is pretty headstrong and relentless as far as his development has brought him up to be, but pitting him at odds with Miles's motivations definitely leads to a much more serious confrontation than what Spider-Man and Doctor Strange did in No Way Home, which was also interesting if you caught that little reference. The Spider-Verse is canon. Bringing it back to our leading Spider-Man, Miles Morales, I just love how this ongoing trope continues to be effective, especially in the story of a hero. And that's because Miles is a teenager. He's walking that fine line of a double life where it not only affects him and his future or even the people that he chooses to save, but his loved ones, his family who are kept in the dark and continuing to not know what his secret is. There's also the morale of a hero, of what it means to be a Spider Man in your own universe, taking responsibility for the sacrifices, the consequences of said actions. Swinging into the society of web slingers, and that was not easy to say, we are introduced to a plethora of Spider-Men. My jaw was dropped to the floor at how many variants from different multiverses were able to get proper introductions and developing screen time. I was even more shocked with some of the more familiar voice work and talents that I was able to kind of catch on with, such as Issa Rae as Spider-Woman, Daniel Kaluuya as Spider-Punk, which I think a lot of people are going to love, and Karan Sani, the guy from Deadpool, as the Spider-Man from India. There are more cameos, but with what's on the previews and what I was very surprised about, I'm going to keep my trap shut. So you guys who haven't seen it yet can be just as surprised as I was. For them to introduce Spot as one of the villains for this sequel, I thought was going to be a mistake. I thought it was going to be a fucking joke, but I was obviously wrong. The guy's kind of funny, and there's something potentially sinister and menacing about his abilities and motivations. He didn't get a lot of screen time here, so I really hope that he takes the stage front and center in the next one. A round of applause for the animators and visual artists that put in every color, every drawing, every detail, and every stylistic choice in every frame of this movie. We got to experience 6 particular realms, and in each dimension, we're getting various art styles, animations, and aesthetics, which were all brought into this mix. And I wish we got to spend just as much time in those different multiverses in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I feel like they montaged that thing way too quick in a blink. And it's very understandable that these guys did not meet their October 2022 release because they just finished all the final touches in like 13 days prior to the June release. Even that whole sequence when Miles Morales is swinging away from all the Spider Society, that took 4 years alone. Knowing that this installment was the start of a 2-part story, I was very curious at how they were going to wrap things up or cut the story down the middle in its 2 hour and 20-minute runtime. The first half of the movie is very dialogue heavy, with a lot of the character development and story, and then the second half is just plunged into the action and the suspense that I don't think a lot of people, including kids, are going to be a fan of the pacing. I know that the first film is very hyperactive, especially with the quick cuts and editing, but this one really takes its time. And especially with a lot of the fidgety kids and a lot of the very impatient ones, I can see in the first half of the movie it might not be their vibe, and then, the last half they're just going to go nuts. And I think it's very important that this first installment of the sequel did kind of lay down all the piping, lay down all the groundwork, because it's going to pay off in part 2, which is supposed to be coming out next year in March. I really hope so. With all this WGA stuff, I really hope this all gets finished in time, because animation is a lot, and I don't think they were even halfway into production at this point for part 2 yet. Overall, Across the Spider-Verse is just perfect. A solid Spider-Man film just as the first one. Easily an Oscar contender in more categories than just Best Animation. This is a summer blockbuster sequel that checks off all the boxes, whether that includes tugging at your heartstrings, delivering compelling character arcs and storytelling, executing heart-stopping action and suspense, and being entertainingly fun from start to finish. This is one of the best movies of 2023. Alright guys, that's all I got to share about that movie. Go ahead and check it out if you want. Guys, I got 2 more movie reviews coming your way this week. One of them is going to be my early screening, my first official press screening for Joyride, which doesn't come out till next month, and also Transformers Rise of the Beasts. I look forward to talking about that with you guys. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I'm Jaren Agbanawag. Look forward to more reviews, and I will see you guys at the movies. Take care. Can't stop me now.